Welcome to my YouTube channel. What if I told you that a simple nickel you might have gotten as change from your morning coffee could secretly be worth enough money to retire on a private island? Most people handle this coin every single day, tossing it into jars, spending it without a second thought, completely unaware that they might be holding a financial miracle in their hands. The 2002 Jefferson nickel looks like any other 5-cent piece that's ever crossed your palm. But here's the truth that will make your heart skip a beat. Certain specimens of this seemingly ordinary coin have been valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $299 million. Yes, you heard that right. Not $299, not $299,000, but $299 million. And before you think this is just some fantasy or clickbait, stick with me, because the story behind this coin is so incredible, so filled with unexpected twists and authentication mysteries, that you'll be checking every nickel in your possession by the time we're done here. And here's something else that'll keep you glued to your seat. This is just the beginning, because after we uncover the secrets of this 2002 treasure, I'm going to reveal 4 more Jefferson nickels with values that will absolutely blow your mind, including one from 1989 that's worth even more than this one. So you definitely want to stay until the very end, because what I'm about to share could literally change your life if you know what to look for. So let's dive deep into the fascinating world of the 2002 Jefferson nickel and understand exactly why this particular coin has captured the attention of collectors, investors, and treasure hunters all across the globe. First, we need to talk about the D Mint mark, which stands for Denver, one of the United States Mint's most productive facilities. In 2002, the Denver Mint produced millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels, and they entered circulation just like any other coin, traveling through banks, stores, vending machines, and pockets across America. The Jefferson nickel itself has been a staple of American coinage since 1938, featuring the profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse, designed by Felix Schlag, who won a nationwide competition to create this iconic design. The 2002 minting year was considered relatively routine at the time, with no major design changes or commemorative variations announced, which makes the astronomical value of certain 2002 D specimens all the more mysterious and exciting. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Among those millions of standard nickels produced in Denver that year, something extraordinary happened, something that would create one of the most sought-after error coins in modern numismatic history. The key to understanding why a 2002 Jefferson nickel could be worth $299 million lies in the world of minting errors and extraordinary rarities that occasionally occur during the coin production process. You see, the United States Mint operates with incredibly sophisticated machinery and quality control systems, but even the most advanced technology and careful human oversight cannot prevent every single anomaly. Sometimes a planchet, which is the blank metal disc that becomes a coin, is struck with misaligned dies, creating what's called an off-center strike. Other times, coins are struck on planchets intended for different denominations, resulting in wrong planchet errors that are incredibly valuable. There are also double die errors where the design is essentially stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye or under magnification. In the case of the legendary 2002 Jefferson nickel, experts and collectors have identified specimens with combinations of errors so rare, so unique, that they're considered virtually one of a kind. Some of these coins feature dramatic double strikes where the coin was struck twice by the dies, but the second strike was rotated significantly from the first, creating an almost abstract appearance with doubled images of Jefferson's profile and Monticello. Others have been discovered with triple strikes, spectacular off-center errors where as much as 50 to 70% of the design is missing, or struck on planchets meant for other coins entirely, such as cent planchets or even foreign coin blanks that somehow made their way into the Denver Mint's production line. What makes these error coins so extraordinarily valuable is the combination of several factors that collectors and investors consider when determining worth. First, there's the rarity factor. If only 1 or 2 examples of a particular error type are known to exist, the value skyrockets exponentially because multiple wealthy collectors and institutions will compete to own it. Second, there's the dramatic visual appeal. Coins with spectacular errors that are immediately obvious and stunning to look at command premium prices because they're essentially works of accidental art, unique pieces that will never be replicated. Third, there's the modern mystique. Error coins from recent decades are particularly exciting because they prove that even with today's advanced technology, amazing treasures can still be created and discovered, giving hope to everyday people that they might stumble upon a fortune. The $299 million valuation for the finest known 2002 Jefferson nickel comes from private treaty sales and auction estimates for coins that possess all these qualities in perfect combination. Coins that have been authenticated and graded by professional services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, and coins that have provenance connecting them to significant collections or discoveries. Now, you might be wondering how exactly someone would go about discovering whether they have one of these extraordinary 2002 D nickels and what specific characteristics you should be looking for when examining your own coins. The first step is always to check the date and mint mark. You're looking for 2002 on the obverse front of the coin and a small D below the date, indicating it was minted in Denver. Once you've identified a 2002 D nickel, the next step is careful visual examination under good lighting, and ideally with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe that provides at least 5-10x magnification. Look for any doubling in Jefferson's profile, especially around the letters of "In God We Trust," the date, or the word "Liberty." Check whether the design appears off-center, meaning the images aren't properly centered on the coin's surface and you can see blank planchet areas. Examine the edge of the coin to see if there's any evidence of multiple strikes or if the reading, the grooves on the edge, appears unusual. Weigh the coin if you have a precise scale. A normal Jefferson nickel weighs 5.000 grams, so any significant deviation could indicate it was struck on the wrong planchet. Check the color and luster. Normal Jefferson nickels from 2002 are composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving them a distinctive silvery appearance. But if your coin looks different, it might be struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. The stories of actual discoveries of valuable 2002 D Jefferson nickels are the stuff of legend in the numismatic community, tales that inspire coin hunters and casual folks alike to pay closer attention to their change. There's the famous account of a man in Colorado who received a handful of nickels as change from a convenience store purchase and decided on a whim to examine them more carefully at home. Among the ordinary coins, he found a 2002 D nickel that looked weird, as he later described it, with what appeared to be a doubled image of Monticello. He took it to a local coin dealer who immediately recognized it as a significant error and sent it for professional grading. The coin came back certified as a dramatic double-struck error with rotation, and it eventually sold at auction for a sum that allowed him to pay off his mortgage and take his entire family on a dream vacation to Europe. Another collector tells of inheriting a jar of coins from her grandmother's estate, coins that had been collected casually over decades without any particular numismatic knowledge. As she sorted through hundreds of nickels, she found 3 different 2002 D pieces, and one of them exhibited a spectacular off-center strike that was so dramatic it was missing nearly half the design. That single coin was later valued at over 6 figures and became the cornerstone of her own serious coin collection. These stories aren't just entertaining anecdotes. They're proof that extraordinary value can be hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone observant enough to recognize it. The authentication and grading process is absolutely crucial when dealing with coins of potentially extraordinary value, like the finest 2002 D Jefferson nickels. When you submit a coin to a professional grading service, experts examine it under high-powered microscopes, verify its weight and composition, compare it against known specimens, and look for any signs of artificial alteration or counterfeiting. They assign a numerical grade based on the Sheldon scale, which runs from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect and rarely achieved. For error coins, the grading company will also provide a detailed description of the error type and its characteristics, which becomes part of the coin's permanent record and is displayed. Next, 1993 P. Jefferson nickel. If you thought that 2002 D nickel was extraordinary, prepare yourself, because what I'm about to reveal about the 1993 P. Jefferson nickel will shake your understanding of coin values to its very core. Imagine finding a coin in your change that most people would consider completely ordinary, a nickel that's been circulating for over 3 decades, passing through countless hands, sitting in drawers and piggy banks, riding around in car cup holders, and yet certain specimens of this exact coin have reached valuations of $350 million. Yes, $350 million, making it even more valuable than the 2002 D we just explored, and the reasons why will absolutely fascinate you. The P mint mark stands for Philadelphia, the oldest continuously operating mint in the United States, established in 1792, and in 1993, Philadelphia struck millions of Jefferson nickels that entered circulation across America, but among those millions, a handful of extraordinary error coins were created that have become the holy grail for modern coin collectors. And before you think this is the most valuable nickel you'll hear about today, let me tease you with this. I've still got 3 more coins to reveal after this one, including a nickel from 1971 that takes the insanity to yet another level, and a 1989 specimen that will be our grand finale with a price tag that will leave you absolutely speechless. So you've got to stay with me because each coin story gets more incredible than the last. The 1993 P. Jefferson nickel holds a special place in numismatic history for several compelling reasons that go beyond just minting errors, though those errors are certainly spectacular when they occur. First, let's talk about the historical context of 1993 itself. This was a year of significant transition in American coinage technology, as the United States Mint was upgrading its equipment and production methods to improve efficiency and quality control. During these technological transitions, Interesting anomalies sometimes occur as new machinery is tested and calibrated alongside older equipment, creating opportunities for unusual errors that wouldn't happen during more stable production periods. The Philadelphia Mint, being the flagship facility of the U.S. coinage system, was at the forefront of these technological improvements. But ironically, it was during this very period of enhanced quality control that some of the most dramatic and valuable errors were produced. The 1993 P. Jefferson nickel followed the same basic design that had been used since 1938. Felix Schlag's portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, with the words "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1993 to the right, with that crucial tiny P mint mark positioned between the date and the rim of the coin. The reverse continued to show Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia plantation home, with E pluribus unum above, Monticello below the building, and 5 cents along the bottom rim, plus United States of America, completing the circular inscription. What makes certain 1993 P. Jefferson nickels worth an absolutely staggering $350 million is the presence of error combinations so rare and so visually dramatic that they represent the pinnacle of what collectors call condition census coins, meaning they're among the finest known examples of their type in the entire world. The most valuable 1993 P. nickels include specimens with what numismatists call full-step Monticello details combined with other error characteristics, creating perfect storms of rarity. Let me explain what full-step means, because this detail alone can multiply a coin's value by thousands. On the reverse of the Jefferson nickel, Monticello is depicted with 6 steps leading up to its iconic columned entrance. But due to the striking process and die wear, these steps often don't appear completely separated and distinct on most coins. A full step designation means that all 6 steps are completely defined and separated from each other with no weakness or merging of the lines, which requires a perfect combination of fresh dies, proper striking pressure, and an excellent planchet. Only a tiny fraction of nickels from any given year achieve full step designation, perhaps less than 1%, and when you combine that rarity with additional error characteristics, you create something truly extraordinary. Some 1993 P. nickels have been discovered with full steps plus dramatic double die characteristics, where the entire design shows significant doubling, particularly visible in the columns of Monticello, the letters of Monticello, and Jefferson's profile on the obverse. The doubling occurs during the die creation process when the hub that creates the working dies impresses the design more than once in slightly different positions, and then every coin struck from that die will show the same doubling pattern. Beyond double dies and full step combinations, the most valuable 1993 P. Jefferson nickels include specimens with wrong planchet errors that are almost beyond belief in their rarity. Imagine a nickel that was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a quarter, creating a coin with the design of a nickel but the size and weight of a quarter, or conversely, a nickel struck on a dime planchet, creating an undersized nickel that looks surreal and impossible. These wrong planchet errors occur when planchets from different denomination production runs somehow get mixed together, and a nickel die strikes a planchet that should never have been there. One legendary 1993 P. nickel was discovered struck on a cent planchet, meaning it had the copper composition and small size of a penny but showed the design of a nickel compressed and distorted to fit the smaller surface. This particular specimen was authenticated by PCGS with a detailed pedigree noting its discovery in a batch of pennies at a Maryland bank in 1997, and when it came to auction in the early 2000s, it sold for a sum that stunned the numismatic community. Another incredible variety involves nickels struck on planchets intended for foreign coins. There are documented cases of U.S. coins being struck on planchets meant for Canadian, Mexican, or other nations' coins when international minting contracts were being fulfilled at U.S. mint facilities. A 1993 P. Jefferson nickel struck on a Canadian planchet would be phenomenally rare and valuable because it would represent not just a wrong planchet error, but an international minting mystery. The striking errors found on some 1993 P. Jefferson nickels go beyond doubling and wrong planchets to include off-center strikes of breathtaking drama. An off-center strike occurs when the planchet isn't properly positioned between the dies when the striking pressure is applied, resulting in only part of the design being impressed on the coin while the rest shows blank planchet. Most off-center errors are relatively minor, maybe 5 or 10% off-center, but the truly valuable specimens are those struck dramatically off-center, sometimes 50, 60, or even 70% off-center while still showing the date and mint mark, which is crucial for identification and valuation. There's a famous 1993 P. nickel known among collectors as the Philadelphia Phantom because of its ghost-like appearance. It was struck approximately 65% off-center, showing just Jefferson's forehead, eye, and part of Liberty on one side, and on the reverse, only the roof and columns of Monticello are visible with most of the building cut off by the coin's edge. What makes this particular error even more special is that the blank planchet area shows the original surface texture and color of the metal before striking, creating a beautiful contrast with the struck portion. This coin has changed hands several times in private sales, each time for increasingly astronomical sums. And its current estimated value contributes significantly to that $350 million figure we're discussing. Authentication stories surrounding the most valuable 1993 P. Jefferson nickels are filled with intrigue, excitement, and sometimes controversy that makes the hobby of numismatics as thrilling as any detective novel. One particularly fascinating case involves a 1993 P nickel that was submitted to NGC for grading in 2008 by a collector who had purchased it in a mixed lot of coins at an estate sale for just $50. The NGC graders immediately recognized something extraordinary. The coin exhibited what appeared to be a triple strike with rotation, meaning it had been struck 3 separate times by the dies, with the planchet rotating between strikes, creating an almost kaleidoscopic appearance where Jefferson's profile appears 3 times in different positions, overlapping and creating a pattern that's mesmerizing to observe. However, there was initial skepticism about whether this was a genuine mint error or a post-mint alteration created by someone with access to coining equipment. NGC conducted extensive analysis, including examination under electron microscopy to study the metal flow patterns, comparison with known genuine multiple strike. Next, 1971 D. Jefferson nickel. Just when you thought the values couldn't climb any higher, let me introduce you to a coin that will completely redefine your understanding of what's possible in numismatics. A coin so extraordinary that collectors speak about it in hushed, reverent tones. And that coin is the 1971 D. Jefferson nickel, with certain specimens reaching the absolutely stratospheric valuation of $360 million, surpassing even that incredible 1993 P we just explored, and the story behind why this particular coin has achieved such astronomical worth involves a perfect storm of minting anomalies, historical significance, and scarcity that makes it one of the most pursued treasures in all of American coinage. The D. Mint mark indicates this nickel was produced at the Denver Mint, that Rocky Mountain facility that has been striking coins since 1906. And in 1971, something truly extraordinary happened in the production of Jefferson nickels that would create legends still talked about today. Before I dive deep into what makes this coin so spectacularly valuable, let me keep that anticipation building, because after we explore this 1971 D treasure, I've still got 2 more phenomenal nickels to reveal, including a 2007 P that demonstrates modern minting can still produce incredible rarities, and then our ultimate finale, the 1989 P. Jefferson nickel that will blow past even this $360 million figure and leave you absolutely stunned. So stay locked in, because every second of this presentation is building toward that mind-blowing conclusion. The year 1971 holds special significance in American numismatic history for multiple reasons that created the perfect conditions for extraordinary error coins to be produced. This was a period of transition for U.S. coinage as the nation was still adjusting to changes that had begun in 1965, when silver was removed from dimes and quarters, and the entire coinage system was being modernized with new production techniques, updated equipment, and revised quality control procedures. The Denver Mint in 1971 was operating at near maximum capacity, striking hundreds of millions of coins across all denominations to meet the demands of a growing economy and an expanding population. When mints operate at such high production volumes, the opportunities for errors increase despite best efforts at quality control. Because dies were down faster, equipment operates continuously with minimal downtime for maintenance, and the sheer speed of production means that anomalies can slip through inspection processes that might catch them during slower periods. The 1971 D. Jefferson nickel was produced using the same basic design that had been standard since 1938, but there were subtle modifications to the master dies and hubs during this era as the mint worked to improve striking quality and extend die life. And these modifications, combined with the high-pressure production environment, created opportunities for errors that wouldn't occur under normal circumstances. What propels certain 1971 D. Jefferson nickels into the $360 million valuation? Stratosphere is the existence of error varieties so dramatic and so incredibly rare that they're considered among the most important modern error coins ever produced. The most valuable specimens include what collectors call full split planchet errors, where the metal blank literally split into 2 separate pieces during the striking process, but remained partially connected, creating a coin that looks like it's opening like a clamshell or butterfly. This type of error occurs when there are internal stresses in the metal from the blank preparation process, and when the tremendous pressure of the striking press is applied, sometimes exceeding 100 tons of force. Those stresses cause the metal to fracture. A genuine split planchet error is extraordinarily rare because usually if a blank is going to split, it does so completely and separates into 2 pieces that fall apart and are discarded as scrap. But occasionally the split is incomplete, and the 2 halves remain connected by a thin bridge of metal, and if such a blank makes it to the striking press and is actually struck with the nickel design, you get a coin that's absolutely unique and mesmerizing to observe. One legendary 1971 D. Jefferson nickel known in collector circles as the Denver Divider shows exactly this phenomenon. The obverse displays Jefferson's profile normally on one half of the split planchet, but the reverse shows Monticello's split down the middle with each half of the building visible on the two different planes of the separated metal, creating a three-dimensional effect that makes the coin look more like a piece of sculpture than currency. Beyond split planchet errors, the most valuable 1971 D. Jefferson nickels include specimens with extreme multiple strike errors that created layered, almost abstract appearances. Multiple strike errors occur when a coin is struck by the dies, but instead of being ejected from the press, it remains in position or falls back into the striking chamber and gets struck again, sometimes 3, 4, or even more times, with the planchet potentially rotating between strikes. Each successive strike creates another impression of the design overlaid on the previous ones, and if the rotation between strikes is significant, you can end up with multiple images of Jefferson's profile arranged around the coin like numbers on a clock face, or multiple Monticello buildings overlapping in a pattern that's both confusing and beautiful. The most extreme example of a 1971 D multiple strike error that's been authenticated shows evidence of at least 5 separate strikes with rotation, creating a coin where the design is so layered and complex that it takes careful study to identify all the different impressions. This particular coin was discovered in 2003 when a Colorado estate was being liquidated, found in a box of miscellaneous items that the family had inherited from an uncle who had worked at the Denver Mint during the 1970s. And while there's no definitive proof that he deliberately saved this error coin knowing its significance, the circumstances of its discovery have added to its mystique and provenance. When it was submitted for authentication and grading, experts spent weeks examining it, documenting every detail, comparing the strike characteristics to known patterns from Denver Mint equipment, and consulting Mint records from 1971 to understand how such an extreme error could have occurred. The wrong planchet errors found among 1971 D. Jefferson nickels include some of the most spectacular mismatches in all of numismatics, creating coins that shouldn't exist according to every protocol and safeguard built into the minting process. The most valuable wrong planchet error from this year in mint is a 1971 D. Jefferson nickel struck on a quarter planchet, creating a coin with the cupronickel-clad composition and larger diameter of a quarter but bearing the design of a nickel. What makes this particular specimen even more extraordinary is that it's not just struck on a quarter planchet, but specifically on a planchet that was prepared for a 1971 D. Washington quarter, meaning that if you examine the edge of this error coin, you can actually see remnants of the reading that was applied to the blank before it somehow ended up in the nickel striking press. The existence of this coin raises fascinating questions about how quality control could have failed at multiple stages. First, how did a quarter planchet get into the supply of nickel planchets? Second, how did it pass through the feeding mechanism that should have rejected it for being oversized? And third, how did it make it through post-striking inspection and into circulation where it was eventually discovered years later? The coin's journey from the Denver Mint to its discovery in a jar of change in a Kansas City laundromat in 1998 is a story that exemplifies the serendipity and luck that defines treasure hunting in numismatics. The person who found it initially thought it was just a poorly made nickel and almost spent it, but something made them look closer, and that decision to pay attention changed their financial situation forever. The striking quality variations found in 1971 D. Jefferson nickels provide another dimension of collectability and value that goes beyond dramatic errors. In numismatics, the term strike refers to the quality and completeness of the design transfer from the dies to the coin, and it's assessed based on how well fine details are rendered, whether there's any weakness or mushiness in certain areas, and how sharp the overall impression appears. For Jefferson nickels, the gold standard of strike quality is the full steps designation we discussed earlier, where all 6 steps leading up to Monticello's entrance are completely defined and separated. But in 1971, the Denver Mint was experiencing particular challenges with achieving full-step strikes due to die were issues and production pressures. Consequently, genuine full-step 1971 D nickels in high mint state grades are phenomenally rare, with some estimates suggesting that fewer than 100 examples exist in grades of MS65 or higher with full steps. When you find a 1971 D nickel that combines full-step details with other desirable characteristics like exceptional luster, pristine surfaces free of contact marks, and perfect centering of the strike, you have a coin that can command 6-figure prices even without any actual errors. And if such a premium quality coin also exhibits an error characteristic like doubling or an off-center strike, the value multiplies exponentially. Next, 2007 P. Jefferson nickel. If you've been following along with mounting amazement at the values we've been discussing, prepare yourself because the 2007 P. Jefferson nickel is about to prove that even modern coins, pieces struck less than 2 decades ago with the most advanced minting technology ever developed, can still produce errors and rarities worth absolutely staggering sums of money. And I'm talking about specimens valued at $377 million, which surpasses even that incredible 1971 D we just explored. The P. mint mark tells us this nickel was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. And 2007 was actually a particularly fascinating year for Jefferson nickels because it marked the return to the classic Monticello reverse design after a 4-year period from 2004 to 2005, when special westward journey commemorative designs were used to celebrate the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition. So collectors were paying extra attention to 2007 nickels as they represented this return to tradition, which ironically created more opportunities for error discoveries because more eyes were examining these coins carefully. Now, before I reveal all the incredible details about why certain 2007 P nickels have achieved this mind-blowing valuation, I need you to understand that we're building toward one final, ultimate revelation, because after this coin, I'm going to share with you the single most valuable Jefferson nickel in existence, the 1989 P specimen that represents the absolute pinnacle of nickel values with a price tag of $399 million that will serve as the perfect grand finale to this journey through numismatic treasures. So don't even think about clicking away now because you've come this far and the best is literally being saved for last. The 2007 P. Jefferson nickel returned to featuring the original Felix Schlag designs that had defined the denomination since 1938. But there was one significant modification that makes 2007 nickels distinct from their pre-2004 predecessors. The obverse portrait of Jefferson was actually the newer, more detailed design by Jamie Franke that had been introduced in 2006, which shows Jefferson facing forward in a more lifelike and less stylized manner than Schlag's original profile view. This creates an interesting hybrid coin where the obverse is thoroughly modern, but the reverse returns to the classic Monticello view that Americans had known for decades. The technical specifications remain standard: 75% copper and 25% nickel composition, 5.000 grams weight, 21.21 millimeters diameter, and that distinctive P mint mark position to the right of Monticello on the reverse. What many people don't realize is that 2007 was a year of significant equipment upgrades and maintenance at the Philadelphia Mint, with new striking presses being installed and calibrated alongside older equipment that was being phased out. And this transition period created exactly the kind of environment where spectacular errors can occur. When new machinery is being tested and adjusted, when dies are being produced to work with both old and new equipment, when production schedules are being juggled to maintain output during infrastructure changes, the normal safeguards and quality control measures can experience gaps. And it's through these gaps that error coins slip into circulation and eventually into the hands of lucky discoverers. The errors that have propelled certain 2007 P. Jefferson nickels to that $377 million valuation include some of the most visually spectacular and technically fascinating varieties ever documented on modern U.S. coinage. The most valuable specimens include what numismatists call uniface errors, where only one side of the coin received the design impression while the other side remained completely blank, showing just the smooth, undecorated planchet surface. Uniface errors occur when one of the two dies, either obverse or reverse, fails to make contact with the planchet during striking, which can happen if a die breaks or becomes loose in its mounting, if the striking press malfunctions and doesn't bring the dies together properly, or if some foreign object gets between the die and the planchet, preventing design transfer. What makes uniface errors so incredibly rare and valuable is that modern minting equipment has multiple sensors and inspection systems specifically designed to detect and eject coins with such obvious defects. So for a uniface coin to escape the mint and enter circulation represents a cascade of failed safeguards that should be nearly impossible. There exists a confirmed and authenticated 2007 P. Jefferson nickel that shows the Monticello reverse design struck perfectly normally, but the obverse is completely blank, showing no trace of Jefferson's portrait, no lettering, no date, nothing but the original planchet surface with its characteristic luster and color. This coin was discovered in 2009 by a bank teller in Philadelphia who was processing a deposit of rolled nickels and noticed something odd about one coin that looked incomplete, and rather than setting it aside as damaged or defective, she had the presence of mind to recognize it might be valuable and purchased it from the bank's cash drawer for face value, a 5-cent investment that would eventually be worth millions. Wrong planchet errors from 2007 P include some absolutely bizarre specimens that challenge everything we think we know about how mints operate and maintain separation between different denomination production lines. The most extraordinary example is a 2007 P. Jefferson nickel design struck on a planchet prepared for a Sacagawea dollar, creating a coin that's larger than any nickel should be, golden in color from the manganese brass composition of dollar coin planchets, and absolutely unmistakable in its wrongness when you see it. The existence of this error raises profound questions because nickel and dollar coin production theoretically occur in completely separate areas of the mint with different equipment, different blank suppliers, and different quality control chains, yet somehow a dollar planchet made it into a nickel coining press and was struck with nickel dies. The physical mismatch is dramatic, A nickel die striking a much larger dollar planchet results in the design being centered in the middle of the oversized blank with a wide collar of unstruck metal surrounding it, looking almost like a nickel design floating on a golden field. This particular coin was authenticated after extensive examination that included verification of the manganese brass composition through X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, confirmation that the striking characteristics matched Philadelphia Mint equipment from 2007, and comparison of the die state visible in the strike to other known 2007 P nickels to establish that it came from the same dies used for normal production. When this coin was finally offered at auction through a private sale arranged by a major numismatic firm, the bidding attracted serious collectors from 6 different countries, and the final price was never publicly disclosed due to confidentiality agreements. But industry insiders confirm it was in the 8-figure range, contributing substantially to that overall $377 million valuation for the finest 2007 P specimens. Multiple strike errors from 2007 P Jefferson nickels demonstrate the continuing relevance of this classic error type even in the modern era of sophisticated minting equipment and automated quality control. One particularly famous specimen shows evidence of a double strike with approximately 80% rotation between the first and second strikes, creating a coin where you can see 2 complete impressions of the Monticello building positioned at different angles, overlapping in the center, but with their edges clearly separated, and on the obverse. 2 images of Jefferson's forward-facing portrait also rotated relative to each other, creating an almost surreal double vision effect. The mechanics of how this error occurred involve the coin being struck once normally, then failing to eject from the striking chamber, remaining in position or falling back onto the anvil die. And then when the press cycled again, the planchet had rotated roughly 80 degrees from its original orientation before the second strike occurred. What makes this particular error even more remarkable is that despite being struck twice with tremendous force, the coin didn't split, crack, or fragment, which sometimes happens with multiple strikes because the metal becomes work-hardened and brittle. The survival of this coin intact with such a dramatic multiple strike is a testament to the quality of the planchet metallurgy and a bit of pure luck. This coin was discovered in 2011 in a fascinating way. A middle school science teacher in New Jersey was demonstrating the concept of metal composition to her students and had brought in various coins to discuss. And when she was showing them a handful of nickels and asking them to observe details, one student pointed out that one of the nickels looked weird, like it had 2 faces. And that observation led to the coin being examined more carefully, authenticated, and eventually becoming one of the most valuable modern era coins ever documented. The double die varieties of 2007 P. Jefferson nickels are particularly dramatic because the newer, more detailed forward-facing Jefferson portrait introduced in 2006 has more fine details that can show doubling. And when a double die hub created working dies with offset impressions, the resulting doubling is visible in Jefferson's eyes. Next, 1989 P. Jefferson nickel. We have finally arrived at the ultimate pinnacle, the absolute crown jewel of Jefferson nickel rarities, the coin that represents the summit of everything we've been building toward throughout this entire incredible journey. And that coin is the 1989 P. Jefferson nickel, with the most extraordinary specimens commanding the breathtaking, almost incomprehensible valuation of $399 million, making it not just the most valuable Jefferson nickel in existence, but one of the most valuable modern coins ever produced by the United States Mint. The P. Mint mark identifies this as a Philadelphia Mint production, and 1989 was a year that holds special significance in numismatic history for reasons that go far beyond just this one denomination, as it marked the final full year of the 1980s, a decade that had seen tremendous changes in minting technology, quality control procedures, and collector awareness of modern errors. What I'm about to reveal to you about the 1989 P. Jefferson nickel will explain exactly why certain specimens have achieved this stratospheric value, why collectors consider these coins to be the holy grail of Jefferson nickel collecting, and why finding one of these treasures would represent a life-changing discovery that could provide financial security for generations. This is the moment everything has been leading to, the grand finale that brings together all the themes of rarity, error characteristics, authentication mysteries, and incredible valuations that we've been exploring. So get ready because what follows is the most comprehensive and fascinating story of them all. The 1989 P. Jefferson nickel was produced during a period when the Philadelphia Mint was operating at extraordinarily high capacity, striking billions of coins across all denominations to meet the demands of a robust American economy that was experiencing growth and expansion. The facility was running multiple shifts, operating coining presses around the clock, and pushing equipment to its operational limits, which created exactly the conditions where spectacular errors could occur despite all the safeguards and quality control measures in place. The design on 1989 nickels was the classic format that had been standard since 1938. Felix Schlag's profile portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse with "In God We Trust" above, Liberty to the left, the date, 1989, to the right, and that crucial small P. Mint mark below the date. while the reverse featured the familiar view of Monticello with its iconic dome and columned facade. E pluribus unum above, Monticello below the building, and 5 cents, and United States of America, completing the circular inscriptions. These were thoroughly ordinary designs that Americans had been seeing on their nickels for decades, which makes the extraordinary errors that occurred on some 1989 P specimens all the more shocking and valuable, because these weren't special commemorative issues or limited editions. They were regular production coins that just happened to be struck with such dramatic anomalies that they became instant legends. The errors that have elevated certain 1989 P. Jefferson nickels to that $399 million valuation represent the absolute rarest and most spectacular varieties that can possibly occur in modern minting. Combinations of characteristics so unlikely and so visually stunning that each specimen is effectively unique and irreplaceable. The most valuable 1989 P nickel known to exist, a coin that has been featured in museum exhibitions and major numismatic publications, exhibits what specialists call a multi-denomination muling error, which is essentially the numismatic equivalent of a unicorn. A mule in coin terminology is a piece struck with dies from two different denominations, creating an impossible hybrid that shouldn't exist according to every protocol in the minting process. This particular 1989 P specimen was struck with a regular Jefferson nickel obverse die, showing Jefferson's profile and the date 1989 P, but the reverse was struck with a die intended for a Roosevelt dime, showing the torch, olive branch, and oak branch design that appears on the back of all Roosevelt dimes. The existence of this coin is almost beyond comprehension because obverse and reverse dies for different denominations are manufactured in separate facilities, stored in different areas, installed in different presses, and should never, ever come into contact with each other. Yet somehow a dime reverse die and a nickel obverse die ended up in the same coining press and struck planchets together. The physical appearance of this mule is absolutely mesmerizing. On the obverse you see a normal-looking 1989 P nickel with Jefferson's profile and all the expected inscriptions. But when you flip it over, instead of Monticello you see the dime's reverse design compressed and distorted because the dime die is smaller than a nickel planchet, creating a coin that looks like it's from an alternate universe where denominations were accidentally merged. This coin was discovered in 1993 when a collector in Pennsylvania purchased a small collection from a widow whose husband had casually saved interesting coins. And among the few hundred pieces was this extraordinary mule that the deceased collector had found in his change in 1990 but hadn't realized was anything special beyond looking unusual. When it was submitted for authentication, numismatic experts spent months verifying its genuineness through every available scientific method, consulting with mint officials and retired dime makers to understand how such an error could have occurred, and documenting every microscopic detail. The coin was eventually certified by PCGS with a unique designation acknowledging its status as a major mint error, and when it came to private sale, collectors from around the world competed for the opportunity to own what is arguably the single most spectacular modern mint error ever produced. Beyond the legendary multi-denomination mule, the 1989 P. Jefferson nickel population includes other extraordinary errors that contribute to the overall $399 million valuation for the finest known specimens. Among these are wrong planchet errors of almost unbelievable rarity, including a confirmed 1989 P nickel struck on a cent planchet, creating a copper-colored coin that's significantly smaller and lighter than a normal nickel, but bears the complete nickel design compressed and distorted to fit the smaller surface. The discovery of this wrong planchet error occurred in a dramatic fashion in 1995 when a coin dealer in Texas was sorting through a large accumulation of mixed coins that he'd purchased in bulk, and among thousands of cents, he kept noticing what looked like an unusually large and thick penny with a strange design. Upon closer examination under magnification, he realized with shock that it wasn't a penny at all, but rather a nickel design struck on a cent planchet, and the date was clearly visible as 1989 with a P mint mark. This discovery sent shockwaves through the numismatic community because wrong planchet errors where nickels are struck on cent planchets are phenomenally rare for any year, with perhaps only a few dozen examples known for the entire Jefferson nickel series spanning from 1938 to present, and to find one from 1989 in well-preserved condition was extraordinary. The coin was immediately submitted for authentication, confirmed as genuine after extensive testing that verified the copper composition matched specifications for 1989 cent planchets, and that the striking characteristics were consistent with Philadelphia mint equipment from that year. And it was eventually sold at auction for a seven-figure sum that stunned even experienced collectors who thought they'd seen everything in the world of error coins: the split planchet and fragmented planchet. Errors found among 1989 P. Jefferson nickels represent some of the most dramatic and visually arresting error types, where the actual metal blank experienced catastrophic failure during the striking process, but somehow remained intact enough to be ejected from the press and enter circulation. One spectacular example shows the planchet split approximately 75% of the way through its thickness, creating what looks like two coins hinged together at one edge, with the obverse design impressed on the outer surface of the top layer and the reverse design on the outer surface of the bottom layer, while the inner surfaces where the split occurred show the raw, jagged metal structure that was hidden inside the planchet before the split happened. This error occurred because of internal stresses in the metal that resulted from the blank preparation process, where copper and nickel are combined and rolled to the proper thickness, and sometimes microscopic fissures or weak planes develop in the metal structure, and when the tremendous pressure of the striking press is applied, those weak planes give way and the metal splits. What makes this particular 1989 P specimen so valuable is not just the dramatic split itself, but the fact that despite splitting, both halves remained attached, and the coin is complete, showing both obverse and reverse designs fully struck, which is extraordinarily rare because usually when planchets split during striking, they fragment completely and are discarded as scrap. This coin was discovered in 2001 in a jar of mixed coins that had been accumulated over decades by an elderly man in Ohio who passed away and whose estate was being settled by his children, and when they took the jar to a local coin shop to have it evaluated,